Yes? Necha.
Nathan, that's right. And Wolf. How many?
600.
More.
Was the list really Schindler's, or was it someone else? What was Schindler's character actually like in real life? And why did Schindler really save the Jews from the Holocaust? These are some of the questions that might be on your mind after watching the acclaimed film, Schindler's List. We'll be answering these questions and many more as we uncover just how accurate Schindler's List was in its portrayal of this remarkable true story. From the origins of the famous list to the complex motivations behind Oskar Schindler's actions. We'll tell you everything you didn't know. His story has captivated audiences around the world, but what happened to Oskar Schindler after the war?
Conditional surrender of Germany has just been announced. At midnight tonight, the war is over.
After the war, Schindler relocated to Argentina, where he purchased a farm with his wife, mistress, and a number of the people he had saved. The Schindler Juden. In 1958, he unexpectedly left Argentina, leaving behind his wife and mistress. He spent his later years traveling between Germany and Israel, relying mostly on support from the people he had rescued. He eventually passed away in Hildesheim in 1974. Why did he leave his wife and never return? Even Emily Schindler, Oskar's wife, couldn't understand why Oskar never came back to her. In her memoir, she described visiting Oskar's grave 37 years after he left, expressing her feelings. At last, we meet again. I have received no answer, my dear. I do not know why you abandoned me. But what not even your death or my old age can change is that we are still married. This is how we are before God. I have forgiven you everything. The reasons behind his abrupt departure and failure to return remain a mystery. Was the little girl in the red coat a real person? No, she was not based on a real person. Director Steven Spielberg didn't intentionally model the character after a real person. However, after watching the movie, a Holocaust survivor named Roma Ligaka felt a connection to the character. She too had been recognized in the Krakow ghetto for always wearing a distinctive red coat. This experience inspired Ligaka to write a memoir called The Girl in the Red Coat, which is still accessible today. Does evidence of the actual list still exist? Yes, evidence of the actual list does still exist. In 1999, the list of Jewish workers compiled by Oskar Schindler was found in a suitcase during the cleaning of a deceased couple's home. This couple had been close friends of Schindler. The discovery of this significant historical document was reported by the German newspaper Stuttgarter Zeitung. And that brings up a really good question. Was the list really Schindler's? Well, you'd be surprised that the real list wasn't solely created by Schindler. Some argue it wasn't a list of Jews he wanted to save, but more of a tool to enhance his heroic image. Interestingly, when the list was made, Schindler was in jail, and the manager he entrusted it to was no longer in his employment. Historians mainly credit a man named Marcel Goldman for the existence of the list. Now, that's a twist in the tale. Before we move on, here's a reminder to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. So, after the war, was he a hero in Germany, or was he hated and punished? How did the Germans actually treat him in post-war Germany? Well, Schindler faced backlash from many Germans after the war for his actions. He lost his nationality right away. His old business partner didn't want anything to do with him. People criticized him publicly, and former Nazis even threatened him. It appears that his brave actions to save Jewish lives weren't valued by those who still supported the Nazis. Did Schindler really kiss a Jewish woman in front of German officers? Well, it turns out the on-screen kiss played out a bit different originally. In the book Schindler's Ark, the kiss actually happened in Schindler's office, where delegations of workers would stop by to congratulate him. The movie makers framed the kiss in a more public setting, likely to emphasize Schindler's defiance and lack of fear in the face of the German officers. So while the location may have differed between the book and the movie, the essence remains the same. Was the character of Amon Goth based on a real character? Yes, the character of Amon Goth was indeed based on a real person. Amon Goth was an Austrian Nazi official who served as the commandant of the Plaszow concentration camp in Poland. In the film, he is portrayed by actor Ralph Fiennes, and his brutal actions depicted on the screen reflect the real-life atrocities committed by Goth during his tenure. So while the film takes some creative liberties in dramatizing certain events, the character of Amon Goth is firmly rooted in the historical record. Were the women of the Schindler Juden really first transported to Auschwitz before arriving at Schindler's factory? Yes, the women and girls of the Schindler-Juden were mistakenly sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau before arriving at Schindler's factory. The Jewish workers were meant to be transported by train to Brunlitz, but the women and girls were redirected to the notorious Auschwitz concentration camp. Thankfully, Oskar Schindler was able to intervene and bribe Rudolf Höss, the commandant of Auschwitz, to release the women and girls. How accurate was the film compared to the book? The film Schindler's List and the novel it was based on, Schindler's Ark by Thomas Keneally, have some key differences. The book plants the reader straight in the middle of the Nazi campaign, with Oskar Schindler already fully immersed in his surroundings, while the film opens in a more dramatic fashion. Additionally, the book has more time to delve into Schindler's backstory and character development, whereas the film focuses more on the visual storytelling. Ultimately, the film is a faithful adaptation, but the variances in medium result in two different versions that present the story in unique ways. What was Schindler's character actually like in real life? In the film, Oskar Schindler is depicted as a heroic figure who selflessly risked his life to save as many Jews as he could. However, the real-life Schindler was not entirely a saint. He had previously worked for German counterintelligence, and it took him some time to fully realize the magnitude of the atrocities happening around him. The film tends to overlook some of Schindler's less admirable qualities, presenting a more idealized version of the man. Why did Schindler do what he did? Schindler himself never gave a clear explanation for why he protected and saved the lives of as many Jews as he did. Some of his Schindler-Juden, Schindler's Jews, have offered their own theories, with Jonathan Dresner suggesting Schindler was an adventurer who got caught up in a play he couldn't get out of. Moshe Beitschiki described him as a drunkard and womanizer, whose actions often put him in jeopardy. Ultimately, Schindler's motivations remain somewhat of a mystery, as even those who knew him well couldn't get a definitive answer from him. And speaking of people who knew him well, let's talk about this wife. She didn't really play much of a role in the film. So, what was Emily Schindler's role in reality? In the movie, Emily is portrayed as rather irrelevant, relegated to the background and seen primarily as the woman Oskar cheats on. But the reality paints a very different picture. According to historical accounts, Emily Schindler may have actually been more caring and attentive to the Jewish workers in their factories than her husband. She used to regularly visit the factories to ensure the Jews under their employ had enough food and were being kept in good health. This was a crucial part of their efforts to protect and save as many lives as possible. Yet, this important detail is looked over in the film version of Schindler's List. It seems strange that the directors would choose to downplay Emily's active involvement and compassion towards the Schindler-Juden. To finish it off, there was one minor but notable inaccuracy in the film. We are talking about the smoke that came from the chimneys of the Auschwitz crematoriums. So, what was it really like? In reality, the crematoriums were specially designed not to release smoke, to conceal the atrocities being committed. This minor detail shows the importance of historical precision, especially in a movie showing such a crucial and traumatic era of history. Although the movie is widely praised as a powerful cinematic masterpiece, it's crucial to acknowledge where it's different from historical facts. What other aspects of this incredible story do you think the film might have missed? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to take a look at our other videos for more movie analyses.
If I just...
There will be generations because of what you did.
I didn't do enough.
You did so much.